Okay, we're back from that short break, and we were talking, and Ray, and if you want to call back in, feel free to do that. You had left talking about polio. One of those, again, one of those diseases that if you've been immunized, it should not make a recurrence, probably because of the young age at which you become immunized to polio. But one of the things that was very interesting about polio, and this came up, I've heard about it, that when they were immunizing babies with oral polio, some of the adults, parents of those that did not get polio or did not get a good immune system, or for some reason weren't immunized to polio, actually were coming down with polio. This happened in a couple of cases and prompted some lawsuits. So if your mother did not immunize you for polio or objected to it, or you did not get that, there might have been a chance that when you had a baby that was immunized, they shed actual live attenuated vaccine or live vaccine, and some parents were getting polio, changing diapers and things of that nature. That was a fecal oral route transmission, and a devastating disease nonetheless, and one of those things that we're happy to subdue and eliminate. That was quite the scare. And you think how far we've come in this vaccine era of vaccines, and then also you think about some of the concerns that we have with autism and things of that nature out there from the vaccines. And I know that that's always a specter, and I don't know how to answer that question. And I don't know what, at some point who's gonna solve that issue, and I don't really know the answer to that. And why we have so much more autism today than we do in the past. Is it just sheer numbers? Is it a percentage of people, meaning that we have a larger population and therefore we have larger autistic births as a result of that? And I think there might be some question whether or not it might be related. Some of our military seems to be maybe having a few more autistic, and those people tend to be immunized, have been a lot more diseases. So I don't know what the answer is. I really don't. And that's kind of a road I would choose not to go down, because I don't know how to, if you want to be a conspirator about that. I don't think it's meant to be that way. I don't think I don't think they're creating the situation if it's an untold effective result of the immunizations. Some people relate it to mercury. Well, there's a lot of mercury-free vaccines today. And they're egg-free vaccines. So they make great strides in producing safe and effective vaccines. And it's always in medicine with everything a risk-benefit ratio. What's the risk of getting a disease, and what's the benefit of the particular vaccine? So if you look at meningococcal disease, the risk of having an untold effect from the vaccine would far outweigh the risk of getting a disease. That's almost uniformly fatal, and a very dangerous disease in that. People will go to bed with feeling like they're getting a sore throat and a cold or a flu, and in the morning they're dead. So this is a very, very scary bacterial infection, and when it does rear its ugly heads, it's kind of like the hantavirus. It just appears in one isolated case, and everybody that's been exposed to that child that could have had meningitis has to be placed on antibiotics, and it's a very scary event that takes place, such as the hantavirus, where you get an outbreak over there in Yosemite, where you get a mouse that happens to have that virus, and a few people get into adult respiratory distress syndrome, a few people die, and they figure it out, and boom, then you got to get in touch with all those people, and there is no cure for that. And that's one of those viruses that used to come up and would take out a few people and then would just go away as quickly as it came. And those are very scary occurrences. Ebola used to be like that. It used to wipe out a village, and that would be the end of it. And it would come from the bats, who would, share food with the monkeys, and the monkeys would have the virus, and the people would eat the monkey meat, and then they would basically put the virus out in the community. They wouldn't know what it would wipe out a village, and that would be the end of it. But as we explored into that part of Africa, we basically brought that disease out of the jungle into modern society. And I guess that's the price we pay for exploration. And again, I refer you back to the movie Contagion. It was a very good example. And a lot of viruses are based in bat. For some reason, bats play a huge role in some of these stranger viruses. And I recently talked about MERS being a bat-related virus. And the beauty of where we've come in technology today is that we can actually take a viral particle and we can actually dissect the genome, which is the genetic material of that particular virus, and we can actually see where it came from, how long it's been there, how long it may have infected, who else may have infected it, because viruses do incorporate some of the host DNA in that particular virus, and therefore we can pick that up. So I'm not a virologist, but that's a very, what I've read and what I understand, it's a very interesting way to be able to pick those things apart and be known what that is. That doesn't help us necessarily find a cure for that particular virus, but it does help us to understand where they particularly come from. And you know, we do live in an era where you know, those types of things can be very dangerous. They spread. I mean, we're a very connected society. So someone gets a virus on an airplane, and they bring that out, and then they infect other people, and the next thing you know, the world is feeling the effects of a new virus. And as we expand our population, as we continue to grow, there's more opportunity for things we're exposed to that we've never been exposed to before. And that's the beauty of what we call cellular immunity. And that's a thymus gland. That gland sits right here. And when we're young, that thymus gland is huge. It's a huge amount of tissue, and it's a lot of undifferentiated thymus cells, or T cells. And as we get exposed to different virus particles or different antigens in the world, then we make antibodies and we make cellular immunity to that particular particle. And as we get older, as we use up those undifferentiated thymus glands, or those cells, as we become older, we become less likely to make antibodies or make directed killer cells to those particular viruses and things of that nature. Now, the influenza virus that we get is a very short-lived immunity. I mean, it's a 6-month, 7-month, and as you get older, that's why you cannot make the flu vaccine is not as effective once you reach into the 60s and 70s, because you have a decrease in the amount of cellular undifferentiated immunity that you can process. So that's why they tell you that if you're going to get the shingles vaccine, get it in the 60s, not wait until you're late. And I tell my patients, and any of you that you've heard this, the shingles vaccine is like it's like a wish sandwich. 2 pieces of bread and you wish you had some meat. Get the shingles and you wish you would have gotten the vaccine. It may not prevent shingles, but it will lessen or dampen the disease or the outbreak thereof. And like I said, some of those shingles can just be mild to a few little bumps and a little pain in one particular area, to involving the whole L5-S1 dermatome and your buttocks area and everything below that, where you basically are extremely painful. The skin is extremely denuded, and the reason that you'll resolve the infection. That's not a problem, meaning the shingles will come up, the blisters will go away. But what can last a lifetime is something called post-herpetic neuralgia, or when the nerve becomes damaged as a result of the shingles vaccine. It sends out irregular or false signals. And those false signals can be meaning burning or searing pain in that nerve for a lifetime. And it is believed that the earlier you get treated, the less likelihood you're going to get that. You can dampen the post-herpetic. And yes, you can treat for it. Zovirax and some of the other antiviral treatments are very, very good treatments for shingles. The question is, can you diagnose it quickly enough to get into your doctor and get the treatment for it? And remember what I said, it's usually a burning, searing pain on one particular side of your body in one particular area. That just comes out of nowhere. All of a sudden it felt like, why am I just really aching on this side of my body? It's just very unusual, but it's only on that side. If the light bulb goes off and you think it might be something like that and your practitioner is astute enough to pick it up, they will probably prescribe you a medication. And it's a very safe medication. So Virax is a prodrug, meaning it only becomes an active viral killer when the cell is actually producing the virus. It's a very unique medication. So it's very safe in that respect, and it doesn't do anything. So it doesn't affect your body with that. So anyway, we're going to go to break here again. And I thank you for tuning in tonight. And if you have any questions, 727-8750. We'll be right back.